think we are here, all of us. And I think we should start because we don't have much time. My name is Birgitta Langhammer. I'm a professor at Oslo Metropolitan University at the Faculty of Health, and I'm going to be the moderator for the 3 first sessions now. And I have the pleasure of introducing my colleagues from the Faculty of Technology, Telenor, Boning Feng. He's an associate professor at Oslo Met, and he's working with data networks and cybersecurity. Thanh-van.do is fellow scientist at Telenor Research in charge for cybersecurity, privacy, and identity management. He's also adjunct professor at Oslo Metropolitan University. They will introduce Aging at Home, a secure 5G welfare technology solutions for elderlies, with the aim to enable newly hospitalized elderlies to come home earlier by making use of a dedicated 5G network for healthcare system. And can you share this? Do you see the share the screen, Boning? Because you are going to be the speaker, aren't you?
Yes, I will try. Thank you. No, sorry, it's the wrong one.
It looked right, Boning?
Oh, sorry,
It look right, Bonnie.
Yeah, you
okay,
just
okay.
upload.
Is that right now?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, okay, sorry.
But you have to take the presentation. Yes. Now we see your to the left.
Sure, yeah.
Yes. Here you are. Yeah. Do you see me?
No, we see your notes now.
Oh. It's okay. Oh, sorry, it's not I don't know. I don't know what happened. Just a second.
You have a switch screen button up on top on the left side of your screen that switches the notes and the presentation. So it's going to be fine.
Actually, I think I deleted my recorded sound, but no, it's sorry, it's kind of I don't know.
Don't worry.
I will try it. Here. Do you see my screen?
Still arriving.
Started screen sharing, it just says.
Yeah.
You are screen sharing. Let's begin the program. I'm not going to hide. You know, I recorded the sound for another occasion, and then I thought I deleted all the sounds. But now it appears that there are. Oh.
Just take up the first version then, and we go for that. It doesn't matter that it shows on the left side.
Yeah, no, it's just that it had the sound in it. I don't want to use it. Do you hear? Can you see now?
Can't see, you have to share.
I do share, and I have. Now?
Can't see it.
Can you see now?
Nothing. We just see Boning Feng has started screen sharing. So I don't know what to do now. Do you want to send it to me and I can share it?
Yeah. Okay. I sent it to you. Okay. I don't know what happened. It's not first time, but
Have you sent it or it just takes time?
yeah, I sent now.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. It's so weird. I have done many times before.
Perhaps we should just change the orders, and you can if the second speaker is ready. Are you?
Yeah, I think so.
Andres
And
Munoz?
Yes, we are. We can start whenever you want.
Okay.
Okay. If you
good.
stop sharing them, Boning, so we'll just take the other ones. Then I have to introduce the second speaker.
Okay.
And this is Associate Professor Fernando Terroso Science. I hope I said it right. You have a PhD in computer science from the University of Murcia in 2009. And you work at the Catholic University. He has published more than 30 articles in international journals and congresses, and his research areas include smart mobility, human-generated data analysis, and mobile sensing. And today you're going to present the work of new smart assistance solution for retirement houses based on a mobile sensing paradigm. The proposed framework is able to collect several health and physical parameters of the users and visualize them in a central multi-platform dashboard. Furthermore, the system allows detecting certain abnormal or dangerous situations related to the residents' users and sends alarms to the staff, providing proactive functionalities. The floor is yours and start sharing.
Okay, let's see if it works now. Let's see, sir. So can you see my screen?
See your screen, but not the same thing as with, yeah.
So can you see?
Perfect.
Okay, okay, that's a good start. Okay, so thank you for inviting us today to the Sheldon conference. And as you said, I'm going to present our work entitled Towards Monitoring Framework from users of retirement houses with mobile sensing. Well, the agenda of this presentation is here. Is just we are going to just introduce the context of our work. Then we are going to briefly describe the service that we propose, the applicability of that service, and finally the conclusions and future work that we are now working on. So regarding the introduction, we can see that there is a general trend, a general pattern in Western countries that their population is aging steadily. Here you have some statistics about the distribution of the population in those countries, and this is a very general trend. Maybe not only in Western countries, in other parts of the globe, we can see that aging pattern. And focusing on Spain, we have some kind of infrastructure of the retirement houses with more than 300,000 places to attend each people. But what is the problem? The problem that most of those houses have is that it's very difficult for the staff working in those retirement houses to effectively control and take care of all the resident paid patients at the same time. And this lack of control can lead to certain dangerous situations and events from the users of those houses. As a matter of fact, let's think about a mentally ill patient that leave the residence, the premises of the residence without any type of supervision. So then he or she can get lost outside the premises. So at this point, what we propose is, okay, we can propose, well, we can make use of the technology in order to support the staff of these houses in order to control and take care of the residents, in order to provide some type of proactive services to help the staff of the residents in order to take care of the users. And what is the technology that we think about? Well, one that is now very well known and very deployed among the worldwide population that are our smartwatches and our wristbands. Why is that? Because these kinds of devices, as all we know, are able to collect a lot of information from the users, and particularly about the health parameters. That is one of the points that we need to assist to the staff of the residents. And that kind of information, we can collect from those devices, provide very valuable information that could be used to develop solutions within the health sector, and particularly for the residents. So what we propose in this work? Well, why we do not take advantage from all these sensors, from these devices, in order to provide a service, a smart service for retirement houses that has three particular features. One is to proactively collect information from those sensors in those devices in order to monitor and control certain health, to automatically control certain health parameters of the users of those residents. This is number one. The second objective is to, based on that information, identify certain situations that can be abnormal or dangerous for those patients, for those residents. And finally, with all that information, we do not only identify certain events, we also provide a dashboard in order to visualize all that information from all the patients that can be used by the staff of the residence. So these are the three goals and the three features that we define for our work. So how we did target that goals? Well, we develop a smart service that in a computer science view, it follows a classical client-server infrastructure. We have the service is composed of two different parts, very different parts. One of them is a client application that is developed this is devoted to collect all the information, all the health, other type of information from the users of a resident. And the other part of the application, of the service, is an administrative module, a server module, I will say, that provides the dashboard to the staff of the resident to visualize the parameters or the collected information from the users. So let's dip into each of these two parts, okay? Regarding the client application, the client application involves two different devices, okay? On the one hand, we have some kind of bracelet that, in particular, we have tested our solution using two models, two smart brands models, the MyBand 2 and the AmatFit BIP, and we collect the information from the sensors in those smart bands, okay? In particular, we are able to collect the walking steps during the day of a user, the distance covered, the current dynamic state, if he's seated, he's walking, running, etc., the calories, heartbeats per minute. And we also use collect the current location of each user based on the GPS sensor. Okay, so all this information is collected by from the smart band, and a smartwatch, a smartphone. Okay, so each user of the resident should wear first a smartband and a smartphone. Okay, the smartphone basically acts as a proxy, as some kind of proxy, because it's in charge of collecting all the information from the smartbands. Just they collect all that information, and finally the smartphone just sends the information, all the collected information from a particular user to a central repository, to a central database. And in our case, we have implemented that by means of the Google Firebase database. So then the management application just is in charge of taking all the information that we have collected from the sensors by means of the client application, and it provides some kind of dashboard to the residence staff. The important point here is that dashboard has two different versions. First, some kind of a web version that you can just visualize in a laptop or a regular computer, I will say. But we have also developed an application, a mobile application. Why is that? Because we think that in its daily routines, most of the personnel of the staff of our residents is not seated in front of a computer. He's moving around the resident premises. So in order to visualize, in order to get access to all the information collected by the service, it's more practical to see it by means of their mobile phone. So we have two different versions of the dashboard: a mobile one, and a web-based one. So let's see a little more detail. What is the dashboard? What is the information that we collect, and how we visualize that? How we provide that to the staff of the residence? Well, the home dashboard, the initial view of the dashboard is some kind of, in its web version, is laptop version, I would say, and his mobile phone version. We have an initial view that we have some general statistics about the whole residence. 2 points here. An interesting point is that we can see, well, if in certain residents they have different premises, they have premises at different locations. So for a particular resident, we can visualize in a map the location of each of the premises of the residence. And we can see a circle here, a red circle here, that defines some kind of an important feature of our model is we can define some kind of geo walls or geo fences. There are some kind of areas where the users of a residence can move around. If they leave each of these, the color area, an alarm is generated by the application saying, okay, you have one of the users of your residence is leaving or is moving too far away from the premises of the residence. So you can more or less control the location of the users of a residence if they go so far. Another view of the dashboard of our application is just a list of the users that we are registered in the application. Okay, with the state of their device, of their associated device in terms of battery and things like that. And then we can, another view is for a particular user of the resident. We can see here that we can visualize certain parameters of that user. For instance, the number of walking steps that they have performed today, the covered distance in meters, then calories consumed, and the heartbeat and the heart rate, and things like that. Okay, both in the mobile and the web, and on the web version. So all this information is provided by the service, and staff members of the residence can visualize each of these parameters for each of the registered users in the application. So let's imagine that with all this information, let's imagine a use case where our application can be very useful for a resident. But let's see an applicable use case. Okay. So in this case, in particular, let's imagine a retirement house where one of the users, we are call him Max, has a early stage Alzheimer's, and he has a tendency to be sedentary. Okay, this could be a perfectly normal use case of a user in a residence. Okay, so for instance, when Max gets up in the morning, okay, the client model that we have seen that obviously Max wears a smart bracelet and also has a mobile phone both in his pocket or near his bed when he's sleeping. Okay, the client model that we have seen will be able to detect the situation by reporting a change in the pattern dynamic state, because it has the client model can detect that the user has moved from a lying state to a sit or a walking state. The client application can do that very easily, along with a slight increment in his heart rate. Okay, in that case, that information is provided to the dashboard, so a member of the staff can go, in that case, can go to the user's room to help the patient to get dressed or have breakfast. But the point here is that the member of the staff member goes to the user room, to the user's room, knowing that the user has actually wake up. Okay. After that, after having breakfast, for instance, the staff member can activate the GPS tracking of the Max mobile phone. We have a functionality that the staff of the residence can control the mobile phone somehow, can control the mobile phone of a resident and can turn off the GPS sensor to control that the user doesn't leave the premises defined by the geofence that I have mentioned without supervision. Later on, the staff member can also control Max that don't remain seated for a long time and goes for a walk regularly. And in that sense, the user, in terms of privacy, the staff can turn off the GPS while the patient is resting after lunch and can send him an alert to wake up when needed. This is a functionality that we have talked. I have not talked, but the server part can send some kind of notification to the client part. So we can make, for instance, the mobile phone or the smart brand vibrate, so to alert or to wake up a user when needed. And finally, in the evening, the staff can prepare Max dinner based on his total consumed calories collected by the client model and displayed in the management window of mobile dashboard. So we can provide some kind of very, very personalized menus to the user residents based on their physical activity during the day. And we can do that because we collect that information. And finally, regarding the conclusions and future work, our focus on the development of monitoring framework for retirement houses and allow some more personalized monitoring from of the residents, not only controlling them, this is an important part, not only controlling their health parameters, but also their location, because we use the GPS location of the user in order to track their location, their movement, sorry. And how we can extend our work? Well, in the basis of the state, the current state of our deployment, we have a lot of new courses of action that in order to improve our service. Actually, there are some obvious ones in order to define the geo walls or the geo advanced areas. We can define different shapes other than circulars. Combining another important line of action is to enrich the service by including sensors that are not in the smart band or the mobile phone, but in other parts of the own infrastructure of the residence, like beds, light, doors, in order to augment the available information, and also to provide some kind of indoor location system. Because actually in the current state of the service, it is true that based on the GPS, we are not able to accurately track the movement of a residence when he's in, or he or she is inside the residence. So we need some kind of indoor location system be in the residence in order to track the movement of a user when he's in the residence. When he's outside the residence, we can rely on the GPS sensor. And finally, we are also going to explore certain machine learning methods in order to predict potential risks and in order to anticipate certain events based on all the collected information from a user. So that's all. Just to finish, I would like to thank the Fundación Seneca from here in Murcia, Spain, for support this project. And thank you very much. It has been a pleasure to present our work here, and I will be happy to ask any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fernando, for your flexibility and for an interesting talk.
You're welcome.
And I forgot to say you could post your question in the chat, but I take the opportunity now. Any questions for Fernando? Please. I have, yeah, Maria.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I have a question. This whole system seems great, but how are you going to ensure that it's adopted by staff who already have their hands full with their work? So will they get alarms when a patient or a client has been sitting down for too long, or how will this work?
Sorry, I have, there is a lot of noise. Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. So how are you going to ensure the system is adopted by staff?
Okay, that's a very good question. One of the I have forgot to mention one of the future work of the future lines of research we have is we are going to try to deploy actually deploy our system in a resident here in the city of Murcia in Spain. And obviously, I mean, we know that before the system is deployed in a residence, we need to carry out certain meetings, informative meetings with all the staff in order to teach them how to use the staff, when he can or should send or how they can send an alarm or an event to the users. Okay, because actually the criteria in order to define an alarm depends of the staff of the residence. But obviously, I mean, we need to prepare the staff of a resident before the solution is actually deployed in a residence. This is we are aware of that, because actually any technology change in that kind of environments should be very well prepared.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Carlos Valderrama from Belgium.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have two questions. One is regarding the type of the bracelet that you can use that technology. If you can mention something, because you already mentioned two models, I wonder if this is possible for any kind of device which is using just Bluetooth to communicate to a smartphone. This is the first question. The second one is, well, in the past we were using Zigbee to follow not just patients but all caregivers. Then we can see exactly in the building where they are, and where most of the time it's easier to deploy that using smartphones. When you mentioned the smartphone, in fact, I don't know how far can be the bracelet from the smartphone, and this could be a problem. I like you to develop these two subjects.
This is two very interesting questions. One of the regarding the first one about the smart brands, one of the tasks that we spent a lot of time at the beginning of the project was to choose the models that we need to use for develop the service, because the thing is that we need to some kind of a smart brand that from which we will able to extract the raw data to the mobile phone, and then that raw data, that raw sensor data, can be transmitted to the central server. And not all of the smartphones are able to do that, or provides APIs that can do that. And we finally choose these two smart brands because we can do that. We can extract, or we can read the raw sensor data from or not the raw sensor data, but the high level and low-level information from those smart brands. And that's the reason that we finally choose these two models, because they provide that functionality. In the market, there are a lot of smart brands with a very range of prices, but the ones that provided that functionality were these two. Regarding the question about the location, one of the things that we need or we are planning to do in the future is to. It is true that the GPS location can be read from the mobile phone, and this is one of the drawbacks of the current version of the system, because now the user needs to wear the bracelet and a smartphone in his pocket. And one of the things that we are planning is we are going to explore other smart brands that includes the GPS sensor in the own device, in order to remove the smartphone from the client part. But we need to see if those smart brands can or provide some kind of interface from which we can extract the data, as we did with the two first smart brands. So this is a very, these are two interesting. This is a very important point for the future development of the service. It is true that the smart phone, it's some kind of the requirement of the smartphone in order to track the GPS location of a user is actually some type of drawback of our approach. I don't know if I answered your two questions, Carlos.
No, that's fine. I'm still asking to me the same questions. This is why.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Anyway, maybe we can continue later the discussion about that, because I have some ideas and I need some help both.
Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see no more questions. So I say thank you once again to you, Fernando, for an interesting talk. And then we will continue with Boning and Tan, and I will try to share the screen with you. Yeah, if I can find more advanced.
Or should I make a new try?
Yeah, you can try to make a new start, Bonnie.
Yeah. Okay. I have disconnected the extra screen and then, yeah.
Perhaps you're better than I am on this.
Here, can you see?
Yes.
Can you see now?
Now, perfect.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome.
I'm so sorry for and kind of embarrassed, and because I'm working at the Department of Computer Science, and it shouldn't be. Yeah, but that's the problem. And my excuse is I'm not young anymore, so it starts to have this problem typically for elderlies. So this is a work done by my colleagues, among others, Birgitta, who chairs the session, and my colleague, as thanh-van.do, and also as some colleagues at the company at Warsaw in Norway, and some of our PhD students. The title is The Aging at Home, a secure 5G welfare technology solution for elderlies. So the motivation is that, as you see, the world population is aging fast, and the need for efficient digital solution enabling elderly to age at home is getting urgent. And there's so far no such a solution which is sufficiently efficient, customizable, secure, and reliable. We present a solution called Aging at Home, which aims at enabling newly hospitalized elderly to come home earlier and make use of the dedicated 5G network slice for healthcare system. Such an isolated logical network will provide adequate security, privacy, and reliability for the selected welfare technologies and services deployed at an elderly home. The proposed solution allows the selection and customization of needed welfare technologies and services, and promotes the reallocation and reuse of equipment. Validation methods and business plan have also been presented, as well as a thorough description of proof of concept, but this will not be mentioned very much here due to the time limitation. You can read it in that paper. So the outline is the introduction, and we present a state-of-the-art of digital solutions to smart living environments for aging people. And then before we present our solution, we need to introduce the 5G network slicing, and then the solution of our aging at home solution. So, and very briefly present a business plan, and finally show a proof of concept implementation. So as said, the aging population brings significant challenges, both for the elderly citizen and for countries all over the world. It leads to the significant challenges such as increased dependency rates, overload of healthcare system, lack of elderly homes to provide support, etc. The use of new technology to provide necessary needs and assistance to senior citizens such that they can live at home as long as possible is by far the most economical and sustainable solution for the whole society. So it's essential that they can live comfortably, safely, and securely at home. Different welfare technology solutions have been proposed, but they are still suffering from many major limitations, such as instability, deployment difficulties, poor usability, and high cost. Our solution is a 5G-based solution, which addresses the mentioned weaknesses. The state of the art, and I will be very brief, there are many research activities in EU and in Nordic countries, like AAL program, Nordic Ambient Assistant Living, and like this Sheldon and other projects. So far, these AAL digital solutions have still quite low uptake due to the following limitations, which is low technology maturity, and they suffer instability. For example, typically they are using wireless LAN 802.11, experience occasional loss of connections due to interference, channel collision, coverage variation, etc. And they also suffer the configuration complexity, because it requires the configuration of several parameters for each installation, which is error prone. Further, security protection requires a considerable knowledge and effort. And also we have installation difficulties. The installation of sensors and devices at the elderly home could be difficult due to the furniture, time-consuming, and hence annoying to the users. So far, the AAL solutions just to continue other weaknesses, limitations. We have this called fragmentation. The current solution, there are silos application that operating in isolation without interworking and interoperability with each other. Consequently, the introduction of additional services will require a full installation of hardware and software, which incurs high cost and disturbance to the elderly. Another limitation is lack of user centricity. As I also mentioned in the previous talk, and too much technology oriented consisting of a bunch of technologies that are put together and offered to the elderly without sufficient consideration of the elderly users' preferences or the health personnel's opinions. Last but not least, we have some security and privacy issues. Although it's necessary to collect the data to provide effective services to the elderly, these data are personal data, which illegal access constitutes a privacy violation. Unfortunately, the protection of personal data is currently not adequate. Another thing is that the use of video camera has been considered as obstructive by elderly who feels watched. So the 5G network slicing that we propose is 5G is the 5th generation of mobile networks. It is well known for its superiority compared to 4G, the 4th generation, in terms of performance, coverage, and quality of service, and the promise of enhanced mobile broadband with higher data speed and the support of a wide range of services and applications, ranging from massive machine type communications to ultra reliable and low latency communications. Less known but not less important is the fact that 5G is a softwareized and virtualized network. Indeed, a 5G network is not made up of physical network elements as traditional mobile network, but of software virtual network functions. This is show the architecture of the 5G network solution slicing concept. The software nature of the 5G network enables the realization of the network slicing, which can be defined as by the 5G PPP. I will explain what it stands for later. It brings with it both weaknesses and strengths, since it shows the same vulnerability as any other software. At the same time, as higher flexibility and dynamicity can be achieved through the logical network segments, also known as network slices. Currently, there's no consensus on what a network slice is and how it can be realized. In this paper, we used 5G PPP, which stands for the public-private partnership. And it allows support of a variety of devices. To obtain a wireless home network capable of supporting a broad range of devices, the 5G network slicing concept is adopted to establish a secure 5G network for elderly care. So the view of this 5G business-oriented view, it says about network slicing. It says that a network slice is a composition of adequately configured network functions, network applications, and the underlying cloud infrastructure, physical, virtual, or even emulated resources, radio access network resources, etc., that are bundled together to meet the requirement of a specific use case, e.g., for example, bandwidth, latency, processing, and resiliency, coupled with a business purpose. The main objective of the aging at home solution is to enable newly hospitalized elderly to return home earlier by providing a set of welfare technologies and services deployed at their home, providing efficient support and assistance from healthcare personnel. The solution can also be used permanently or temporarily for the time needed towards full recovery. The deployed equipment could be easily removed and collected for reuse by other elderly. As such, aging at home can be used in a dynamic and customized way for any elderly who needs assistance from healthcare personnel while living at their home. The services technology and services deployed at this aging at home solution include vital sign monitoring system that allows the monitoring of vital signs such as heartbeat, heart rate, body temperature, respiration rate, and blood pressure, etc. that are used by the medical professionals to get a good overview about the health and the elderly person. It can also have a reminding system which helps elderly citizens remembering to take their medicines as well as meals at correct time and dosage. It also can have automated activity and fall detection system, which can distinguish between normal and abnormal activities and to detect a fall to trigger an alert, which can again result to an emergency with intervention of caregivers. Another is the automated emergency call system, which locates, contacts, and directs the nearby appropriate caregivers who gives assistance to the elderly person in emergency cases. It also has multimodal communication that provides secure remote medical checkup or with doctor medical staff, secured interaction with healthcare system, including notifications and alarms. At the same time, it helps combat isolation and loneliness by allowing elderly to communicate to friends and relatives. I'm sorry for the small type font in this page, and it's just described a typical use case. Let us consider the case where an old lady called, let's call Kari. It's a Norwegian name, who had a successful heart surgery and is allowed to come home after 4 days instead of 1 week. Her vital signs are monitored, and also assistance can be given on time at the occurrence of incidents such as loss of consciousness, fall, heart attack, etc. In addition, Kari suffers of a sleep disorder, which needs to be diagnosed. Kari also needs a secure communication of a facility which allows secure interaction both with the hospital, family, and friends. And to be safe at home, the following technology should be in place. Sensors for monitoring the vital signs, glucose, and breathing, and sensors for detecting incidents such as loss of consciousness, for heart attack, etc. She will need a tablet PC acting as the secure communication with the hospital and for contact with family and friends. And we also need a secure and reliable connection link to link the sensors and equipment to the hospital system. As a majority of elderly, Kari does not have the necessary sensors and equipment, nor the secure and reliable connection needed. But thanks to aging at home, all the necessary equipment and infrastructure can be identified, located, configured, and installed at Kari's home short time before her return. The rollout consists of the following steps: visit and assessment of the technology infrastructure at her home by technology specialists, and design and configuration of necessary equipment such that they can be functioning immediately after power on without any on-site configuration, which that include 5G sensors and devices will get installed SIM cards. The device sensors ID will be registered and their access right to the healthcare's 5G network slice and to the healthcare system will also be set up and enabled. And also using these sensors and devices using their wireless technology such as Bluetooth, Zigbee, WLAN, etc. 5G gateway will be used and necessary pairing to ensure security will be performed. And also we have this design and establishment of connection to healthcare network slice. Depending on the availability of broadband connection at the carrier's home, one connectivity alternative will be chosen among 5G fixed wire network access, wireless access, indoor radio unit, or 5G enhanced mobile broadband. The conceptual architecture is showing on this figure is that we have multiple sensors. They are connected to open IoT via 5G network or a sensor gateway. The data can be forwarded to agent at home apps here, artificial intelligence machine learning platform, or the healthcare system, HCS. The artificial intelligence and machine learning platform has interfaces with the agent at home apps and the HCS, which are then enabled to invoke various analytic tasks. The interface between the agent at home apps and the HCS here enables the agent at home apps to access the healthcare system, user, and caregiver database, and also other functionality, while the HCS can control the agent at home apps. The healthcare network slicing is a concept is showing here, like in order to provide a connection which provides adequate protection of security and privacy at an acceptable level of reliability, a dedicated and isolated end-to-end network slice will be established. Only device equipped with SIM cards owned by the hospital can be authorized to connect to this healthcare network slice. While IoT devices are in general not allowed to, but some smartphones may be permitted to have a simultaneous connection to the public network slice depending on the security policy of the hospital. And since the edge cloud is in same area, very low as the elderly home, we can achieve very low latency, that is delay time, and so make it suitable for welfare technologies. Both the security and privacy are considerably enhanced because communications between sensors and agent at home do not have to traverse the entire mobile network, but only a short path between the gateways and the edge cloud. We also wrote something about a business plan in a paper, but due to time limitation, I'm not presented here. I just say we discuss about the vision, the mission, and product service solution, and the customer market, organization and management, and a go-to-market plan, action plan, and something about financing and funding. The last topic is the proof of concept implementation. It's a cloud, we're using cloud radio access network here, and it's a gateway to the 5G, and cloud radio access network is communicating to a cloud air interface and virtual evolved core network, a functional split of the baseband unit and the remote radio head. We have separate home HSS databases that restrict the communication. The association of specific users to a specific network slice is achieved at the radio access network layer. And yeah, so it's time to conclude. We have presented Aging at Home, a welfare solution which enables newly hospitalized elderly to come home by providing a secure, privacy-preserving, and reliable 5G network slice at an extensible and adaptable framework, allowing the selection and customization of the needed welfare technologies and services. The solution also enables the reallocation and reuse of equipment when they are no longer needed. So validation methods and business plan are elaborated in the preparation of a future trial. Although the current proof of concept is working, only functional and limited performance tests have been done. Further tests and validations done with real users must be performed to identify weaknesses that can be improved, ensuring the adaptation of aging at home for the benefits of the elderly. The most optimal validation would be a field trial with a limited set of elderly at home, 1 or 2 municipalities for a period of 6 to 12 months on a real 5G network, mobile network, which is made available by Horizon 2020 5G Venice facility pilot in Norway. For the realization of such trial, funding is required, and efforts have been put to elaborate both national applications and EU project proposals. In addition, contacts and dissemination activities toward elderly organizations and municipalities should also be pursued. This paper is a result of Horizon 2020 Concordia project, which has received funding from the EU Horizon 2020 program under grant agreement number 830927. The Concordia consortium included 23 partners from industry and 23 partners from academia. So thank you, and here you have the contact information. And thank you very much, and sorry again for the technical issue in the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Boning, for the interesting talk. And I wonder if there are some questions. I haven't seen any in the chat. Perhaps you could raise your hand and speak up. None whatsoever. We're all stunned. Well, it's an interesting thing. This, at least in Norway, we have this problem with early discharge from the hospitals and the worries at home. So we receive many recalls in the hospitals. So this would be a good thing to continue with. So then I say thank you to Boning and Tan for an interesting talk, and then we move on. And this time it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Emanuele.naboni. He is an architect, a licensed architect with a PhD in science, an associate professor at the University of Parma in Italy, and at the Royal Danish Academy in Copenhagen. He will talk about climate change, and the issue for elderly in this talk is rethink outdoor and indoor for seniors in a climate change scenario. Very important subject, Emanuele. The floor is yours. Would you like to share the screen?
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Hear you perfectly.
And it's nice to see you and all the friends of Sheldon. We used to meet physically. I hope there will be future chance to meet again. So today I would like to talk a little bit of how the built environment is subjected to the phenomenon of climate change. Now, somehow we can rethink the city or the indoors, especially in light of elderly well-being and quality of living. Up to now, we have been trying to limit what it is climate change. This belongs perhaps to the definition of sustainability we have used up to now. But it would be nice to begin to think of environment where temperature allows for people to live comfortably rather than refer only at quantifying by how much the climate should change or should not change. So I introduce a small concept, which is the one of thermal resilience. We are going to expand it a little bit later. I'll try to discuss some of the scales that can be from the city to the indoors that can affect elderly people within the frame of climate change. Starting from the fact that with aging, basically the ability of dissipate heat of our body clearly is going to decline. Somehow this is related to the skin blood flow, which changes with time. On the other hand, we also know that sweating is with age less efficient, and that because the sweat glands become per se less efficient. So these are some of the reason of the hard time we have with age in acclimatizing. So we have to think that up to now, the building industry or the indoor industry have focused mainly on what we can call conventional practice in non-create health issue to people. We are trying to minimize the impact of the building on people. Sustainable design is trying to create environments that are neutral to people, that are not creating any damage, but that in a way perhaps they are not positive. So perhaps it's today time to think of city and indoor space that are able to create salutogenesis, good condition for elderly to stay within the city. And so this is a strong paradigm shift. And I must say that for now, if we would do a literature review of, as well as a review of what is happening in the practice, we are very far from any type of thinking that relates climate and salutogenesis and therefore regenerative design. But what is happening? I will bring you some real example of work I'm doing. So this is for the city of Gothenburg. What we are seeing is that temperature are increasing. And these are the average temperature, of course, for the different months of the year. And you can see in the darkened red chart how and by how much the average temperature is increasing. Talking to people in Gothenburg, they experience this sense of uncomfort for two reasons. I will explain it through this chart. This is basically a thermography of what is happening in a part of the city of Gothenburg. We have parts where on the outside, in the afternoon of a summer day, around 4 o'clock, we have outdoor part where the air temperature reaches 35 degrees. And we have building with similar, if not higher temperature. Why? Because from one side, the city wasn't thought for a warming climate. Therefore, we have surfaces that collect heat. On the other side, we have buildings, especially in Scandinavia, that are purely thought through for the winter condition. So these are buildings that have a thick insulation. But the problem comes in summer. These buildings are most of the case without air conditioning, which means that in summer it's like if you have this sweater on, which is insulation, that you cannot take off. It's clear that all these units are operating to very high degree of temperature. Is this a problem today? Yes, it is. People, according to interview, are already complaining about this. But if you look in 2050, so I repeat the shift from 2020 to 2050, what we can see is that we have outer part of Gothenburg that will be at more than 40 degrees and buildings that are super overheated. So it's quite important to begin to think what are the buildings that increase less of temperature? What are what human feature are granting a good and mitigated climate for the future? This is another work in Venice where we focus on indoor comfort and try also to define some threshold for the elderly population who lives in Venice. Is either very a segment of population which is very old, who are those that hasn't left the city, and then there are people that are temporarily tourists or people that come from some period when there are biennale of architecture, art, or cinema, or for have 1 or 2 day weekend in Venice. But the segment of population that stays are either elderly or student of the University of Venice. What's the problem here? That if we look at now and at certain fabric of the city, we have a certain type of buildings and those are the one in red especially, and those in orange and yellow, but are already overheating. But when we look at 2050, we have an increment of temperature, especially in a certain building, where would make them not livable, especially for those people that have difficulties in thermal regulation. So this is a little bit of a problem statement. It begins to underline the fact that there is a problem. And I would articulate a little bit more the problem statement through this work done for the city of Malaga, where the building built in the 70s have almost one type of population, people that are around 60, 70 or 80s or 90s year old, because these buildings are inhabited by the people that were part of the first, let's say, urbanization of cities, but those that came into the 70s. And I guess each of our countries has this layer of buildings that needs to be readapted to the needs of elderly people. So 90% of the people living into these houses are over 65. So it's quite a mono age type of resident. First of all, we saw that people try to adapt to the climate issue by including this type of, you can see here, these were balcony, but they created a shading system. They created more system for ventilation. Some put some Venetian blinds, some curtain. People are feeling this problem and they try to adapt in several and different type of ways. So we have modeled more specifically the site. We know that it's going to overheat, but also we begin to see that, especially in summer, we took 2015, 2018, the cooling loads will increase much more. It means also that the occupants will have to face a very high bill for cooling, or they will have to have additional air conditioning system, which is a matter of energy expenses and energy poverty from one side, and on the other hand, these are systems that somehow will imply a disconnection of people from the outside. So it's very important to begin to think that beyond energy and temperature, it's important to think, how can we, for instance, sort out solution that allows to create a better climate into the city and into the unit. So this work is taking the direction of introduce nature as a way to mitigate and adapt to newer temperature patterns. And these are, and this is all only a study. And the study also links to the concept of biophilic design, the sense of nourish this very important connection that occupants need, and especially elderly, needs to have with the nature. The site that we've seen before was completely artificial. There was not even one natural element. So it's very important to begin to think of elderly as something that is not only needs, but they don't only need technical solution and the smart homes system or smart air conditioning or things that help in their movements, but it's important to think of their psychophysiology And therefore, the connection to nature is quite important in that sense. And there is quite an amplitude of literature show how this is very important, especially for elderly. And that is leveraged a little bit more in some work for in Copenhagen, where especially, and again, these neighbors where you have a mix of population, but still a certain retention of elderly people. Although in the Nordic, we have much more the phenomenon of elderly leaving the main city to go to the suburbs. Because on average, already when you're Scandinavian, around 60, you are thinking of having a flat entrance into your apartment. I found it very peculiar of Copenhagen that people perhaps live in 4 or 5 houses during their life. But around 60, they're already thinking of how can I relocate to a flat ground? I want to not take stairs to enter my house. But certain historical neighbors are still retaining certain population. And in this light of co-benefits, it's important from one side to manage extreme events like water bomb that are experienced, I guess, in some of our cities, most of our city. And have a system that not only technically is able to collect water, but also a system that creates a nice microclimate and that nourish this contact with nature, especially for elderly, but on an average for all the segment of population, it's very important. So recovery for elderly, but also well-being on daily basis for elderly, it's really much based on this contact with nature based solution. Perhaps I'll skip some part to not to become over technical, so we'll just go through then some concepts that comes to the interior and climate change. What we have today, I'll start from here, also for elderly, it's houses of this kind. We have a floor which is heated and cooled, probably with a thermostat, with one number that we set. We have windows that are very hard to maneuver. They're very hard to open. We have a neutral environment. We have a house which is probably detached from a site. There is no interplay. When we look at some of the Scandinavian master houses, for instance, Alto, we can see a certain difference. Also in terms of, imagine yourself, you know, making your furniture here and going to live here, and imagine yourself nowadays living here, and imagine yourself when you will be 85 there and here. So this system, which is namely Alto kitchen, has 68 means of regulation, climate regulation in a way. You can, and there is also a discourse of tactility and connection with natural materials of the place, which is definitely not happening here. There is also this window that can have a 68 configuration. There are different window pane that can be operated. There is a curtain that can be moved. And my question is, do you prefer a smart home like this? Or do you prefer perhaps a not smart home like this, built 100 years ago, where you have a biophilic elements and there is a user connection to the place? So this is one aspect, perhaps a little bit of thinking on how in our connection with the space, we can also think of these intangible qualities. Another aspect is about thermoregulation. I'm working with the University of Eindhoven, seeing that our bodies, and especially those of elderly, doesn't need a fixed temperature at 26 or 24 in winter, and same or different temperature in summer. Perhaps we need something different, and science now is proving that we need to work a little bit to adapt to a climate. From a healthy point of view, it's very important that our body is exposed to surface of different temperature. This is a Korsmo house in Norway, and I just wanted to share some details of it. You can see that we have two main temperatures, the one of the fire and the one of the surrounding. Snow is up to here. We have a hot surface and we have a cold surface. And imagine sitting you here. From one side, you have this step that allows you to have more contact. The body, the front of the body is fully exposed to the fire. As you notice, also, this sofa doesn't have any back part. Okay, comfortable or not, this is also debate. But this allows the body to be exposed to colder temperature. So our thermal receptor, as well as you have you can put your foot in these bricks that by conduction, you can see that there is this step, but by conduction, these bricks are warmed up by the fire. The table is very low also in order to increase this exchange. Also, there is thermal daylight. So the space is sparring as far as is providing warm color and cold color. So even visually, and this is called thermal daylight or alesthesia, there is a way to stimulate our senses in the interplay with the thermal receptor dislocated in different ways in our body. We know that some are the one about warm are mainly close to the vital organs. We know that the one about cold are perhaps in the extremity, in the head, and in the calf. So our body is a geography of sensor. Our vision, what we see has an impact on the stimulation of the sensor. And in this way, we are activating that process of thermoregulation, even confusing a little bit our body. But science proved that this is something that, for instance, is repeated, of course, after several years. It's something that diminishes the percentage of people that develop diabetes and several other types of diseases. So being active doesn't only mean physical activity for an elderly one, but it also means being in an environment which is thermally stimulating. As well, for the outdoor, it's possible to interplay with wind, light, and so on in order to create an environment which is vibrant. So it's not only a matter, as we saw before, of temperature, which is very important, and we can mitigate or adapt to that. We can create solutions that are able to create a nice climate. But it's very important to begin to think of solutions that enable a more complex and more articulated dialogue that connects occupants to nature in a way. This is perhaps interesting in some houses like Alvarado, like Erskine, the box houses in Sweden. Where we can see how this is a plan, this is a large opening, there is a chimney, there are several thermal mass, some air passage, a small kitchen, a northern side with insulation given by the closet. But what is the sense of this type of architecture is that it creates a strong connection to the outside. It creates a connection to the context, to the forest, to the sun path. So this house enables to create a connection between inhabitants and the site. Whereas this concept, it's a matter of isolation. Also thermally, they work like a oven in winter and like a fridge in summer. But this has several limitations then. Perhaps I'll take a moment to ask Birgitta how much time I have left, because I don't want to get out of schedule.
Dear Emanuele, you have 5 minutes to talk and 5 minutes for questions. So, yeah.
Sure. I think I'll skip several stuff because perhaps they're not relevant for the discourse of today. Yeah, perhaps I'll just conclude linking that some of the topics are expressed more scientifically into the paper that you can read for this meeting we have today. but also there are also other cases that are a little bit more science-based. But overall, it's possible to find some of these findings into this book that can be downloaded in ResearchGate, which is called Regenerative Design in Digital Practice, a handbook for the built environment, where there is a special focus on some of the topics discussed today. Now, I would like to have perhaps a conclusive thoughts, just to give a sense of what was discussed today. So the challenge is very high. My message is not to think only about hyper-technical solution, and to confront from one side to, it's very important that our solution are filtered also from a changing boundary condition. Climate change condition for people can change condition for other species, changes all of the layer that we are exposed to. I'm here in Cyprus now in a conference which is really actually strongly about that. So one message is perhaps is more of a question: how can we relate to these changing patterns of temperature? Can our technical solution or architectural solution consider that? And the second point is that the answer should not be wholly quantitative. We may bring from one side a major connection to nature. From the other side, we may think of environment that are a bit more playful. We don't need to always to provide a constant level of light for people to, because we know that at a certain age for read we need 500 lux, but we should create, for instance, environment that provide different conditions of light that are much more playful. Or nature, we can connect with nature inside the space, with throughout fabrics, throughout certain set of materials, and with visual connection to the outside. Linking to the discourse of light, perhaps I'll just talk a little bit about this project in Torino, where in order to stimulate this ever-changing condition on the indoor, my consultancy has been on how can we create environments where there are different colors of glass or different thermal conditions, because the buildings have different type of insulation or no insulation. So by design, it's possible to create environments that are more diversified rather than homogenized. I think it's much more important now that we shift from a concept which is conservative of granting what are okay, acceptable conditions to environment that are much more stimulating, that produce health because they are salutogenic. So we should leave the concept of neutral environment towards environment that are more engaging directly our mind and indirectly our body. So perhaps I'll close with this attempt to make a statement. Yeah, and I open the floor to questions, if any.
Thank you so much, Emanuele. You have really been mind-boggling now. Many interesting thoughts about materials, light, colors, and connection with nature, which of course we in Norway enjoy very much. And also the energy costs will rise enormously, as you point out, with cooling down and heating up here in the northern countries. I wonder if there are any questions. I don't see anyone in the chat. Could you please engage?
I have one question, if I can.
Veronica, yes.
Hi, Veronica.
Yeah, hey, Emmanuel, nice to see you again. When you speak about this diversifying, is it comfortable for human body when you feel different temperature in different parts of your body? How it is with physiology?
Okay, thank you so much. This is actually one of the articles in this book, and the authors are those research group in TU Vienna. And their theory is that to activate the thermoregulation and health, it's important to have a diversification of surface temperature. Namely, or technically, we're talking about the mean radiant temperature in the environment, which is directional. It depends on our position of the body and what part of the body is. So, of course, each of us has a different sense of comfort, but according to these studies that they are conducting, their results shows that this is more comfortable. Like people like the transitioning from cold to warm. And in the dialogue, they use an example of when we wash our hands, we enjoy some time coming from outside and have a warm hand, and then, or perhaps even when we do shower to change temperature, just to pass from cold and warm. And I guess all the this thermoregulation concept in reality is already existing in too many cultures. From the Romans, you know, calidarium, tiepidarium, and frigidarium, there is this health given by thermoregulation because the body needs to adapt. Or from the Scandinavian that goes from the hot sauna or the Finnish to the cold water. In Copenhagen, I used to have colleagues that were going into the canal each morning before going to work. But this is a bit extreme. Okay, I will not talk about that. But the point is that there is a word is called, perhaps you know, because of course, Veronica, you have a fantastic center. We were so lucky to visit you in June and being experienced to all the set of studies that you're doing, including those on thermal and physiology. So in general, in the built environment, there is all the index also are kind of awarding this static comfort. We know that comfort is a given temperature, and then we analyze according to Fanger or others findings if we are into this comfort threshold. It's statistical system. So I believe at least that's what is emerging in the dialogue with scientists of this kind, that the next ideas will be much more related to an environment which it's more dynamic, where there is a thermal transition. So temperature will change across time and across space. So I am highlighting this as a trend and try to transform it into architecture. Perhaps needs to be. It's a debate. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's not easy to answer in a couple of minutes, but in general, it was interesting, this idea that this stimulation, thermo stimulation, that maybe it's really good also for immune system to have it stimulated. So not to have really complete comfort, but to use it like, you know, Wim Hof method or something like that. It's extreme, and it's a question if it's suitable for elderly. It is for sure suited for healthy people, but there is a question if it's suitable for somebody that has already some impairments. Sure,
that's a great point. Perhaps Veronica, in our next collaborations,
Yeah, I have ideas when you were speaking about it.
We'll dig into it a bit more.
Okay.
Can I add something here, please?
Thank
you.
Yes,
Yes, we are studying older adults' needs in built environment, and we're just writing an article. And I just want to say that one of the basic needs of people are, okay, if we check the Maslow's theory, where you have this homeostasis, but if you check social production theory, you have their stimulation and comfort. So it's good that you have both things, so you're comfortable and you're stimulated. So that changes in temperature for me makes sense. So thank you very much for pointing that out.
No, I mean, I can't wait to read some of your studying because perhaps today I was a bit too extreme. It seems that we need to be in discomfort. It's of course there is this kind of reasoning is within the comfort threshold. This variation are yeah, a very good type of point. Thanks.
Thank you. And then I have to say thank you to all three speakers this morning.
Can I add just one comment, Birgitta?
Oh, yes, Nuno.
Yeah, just one final comment to Emanuele. So hearing you, Emanuele, reminds me how much I wanted to be an architect when I was younger. Thank you for this.
Yes, there you see the broken dreams, eh?
Well, you have a very successful career, Nuno. So architects, most of us fails, including me in a year or so. So.
But I would like to thank all three contributors this morning, Tan and Boning, Fernando and Emanuele, for interesting and very nice talks about aging and bringing us a bit further. And now I will leave over to Nuno Garcia, who will take over as moderators for the next speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think now it's time for us to have a quick break because we'll start at 1 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. Birgitta, can you please confirm this? I'm looking at the program here.
Perhaps a change in program. I thought Zahra was going to talk now before the lunch break.
Oh, okay, right. You're right. You're absolutely right. So you are absolutely right, and I apologize to Zahra. So let me introduce to you Zahra. I'm not going to dare to pronounce her name because this is way off what would be a usual Portuguese name. So I would like to invite Zahra to quickly make a brief introduction of herself and of the paper that she's going to present. And I hope I can already give you privileges to share your screen. So Zahra, please, the floor is yours. Quick introduction and then your paper if you wish.
Hi, my name's Zahra Rahemtulla. It's a Muslim name. It's not that easy to pronounce for everyone. I'm a doctoral candidate at Nottingham, Trent University, and I work with the Advanced Textiles Research Group there. And my paper, I will share my presentation, hopefully. Is it sharing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Is it on full screen? It's not showing me.
It's not yet full screen. We can see your PowerPoint screen. So now it is full screen.
Okay, brilliant. So, so my paper is about using inertial motion units to find the optimal location for near falls, for monitoring for near falls. And I'll just give you a quick overview of what my presentation will be. I will give you a background to why I'm doing the study. And then I'll talk about my experimental setup, what I did, and then the results, a discussion of electronic yarns, because that's the next part of my PhD, and then other future work that I need to do. So the background, as we all know, today people are living a lot longer and the world population is aging. And we want people to age healthily. We don't want them to just age, and we don't just want them to be physically healthy. We want them to also have a good quality of life. And a major risk factor to the quality of life of this aging population is falls. And ideally, the ability to remotely monitor in real time for falls would be ideal so that, hopefully we can prevent people having something called long life. So if people live alone and they fall, that's quite a big deal. It can really affect their mental health and they can have fear of falling. But also if somebody falls and they're alone and they've, I don't know, become unconscious and you don't know about it, that's also a problem. I want to find people and get them quick medical attention if that's what they need. And I don't know about you, but my grandmother fell and she broke her hip, and eventually that sort of led to her death. And that's quite common for people. That's an experience that people have. And but not only do we want to detect falls, ideally we want to prevent falls. And near falls are a precursor to falls, and near falls happen more often. And if we could detect those, then hopefully we could prevent falls, because we could see the underlying reasons why people are having falls. And there are commercially available products for falls, and they come in for automatic detection, and they come in the form of pendants and wristwatches. Well, they're not really watches, but they're worn on the wrist. And from what I've read in the literature, people don't really like to wear things that showcase their vulnerability, and they don't like, especially a pendant, which is quite big, as you can see in this image here. And from what I've read, the watches that people wear, so Apple Watch also makes fall detection in their watch, and they use the accelerometer and gyroscope within the watch. However, they only say that they can detect hard falls, and really I want to be able to detect falls. But the main aim of this part of my work was to begin to understand where would be the best place to put a sensor for falls, to then help me figure out what would be best for near falls. And so my experimental setup was, I had a commercial sensor that I bought that came with associated software, and I put 6 of them on one person at a time, so I could simultaneously collect all the data that I wanted to collect for all the activities I had to do. And I had them wear it on very common places in the literature, so chest, waist, lower back, left wrist, left thigh, and left ankle. And then I had them do a list of 10 activities. And here I've just put on some images of what kneeling is, and then reaching high to low. And then I had people fall sideways onto a crash mat, mostly so that they wouldn't injure themselves because of where the sensors were. And I attached the sensors to the people using some fabric, so they were quite tightly attached to people. And what I will show you now is some of the data from my experiments. And I will only show you like some of the locations, because I collected quite a lot of data. And for falling, this is what the data looks like on a wrist. So this is acceleration and angular velocity. And it doesn't really look like much. And as I show you the next slides, you'll start to see why that having fall detection on your wrist might be a problem, because I think people move their wrists quite a lot anyway, so having them wear it for falling when they already do quite sporadic movements with their wrist is a problem. And this is what the data looks like on the waist, which is possibly where a belt could go. And you know, there are clear patterns here, you know, sort of semi-repeatable patterns in the acceleration. And you can quite clearly see when people are just stood still, when they stood back up. So I had them do 5 falls, and then they stood still in between so I could catch the data. And here it is on the ankle. And again, you can see it's a little bit messier, probably because it's not quite the acceleration from the ankle to the floor. But there are definitely five falls there. And then this is the data for the thigh. And there's a much better pattern with the thigh. And for everything with the thigh, there was always quite a good pattern for every activity they did. So this is falling, and it's you know, it's consistent each time pretty much. And then this is some data from the thigh when people are just walking. And so for near falls, we don't want to just detect this hard fall. We want to be able to detect people that are tripping and stumbling and having imbalances. So this is walking, and then sitting on a chair, you can quite clearly see someone standing, then sitting, then standing, then sitting, which is quite nice to see. And you can even see it down here with that angular velocity. And it's a very clear pattern of what's happening. And here I had people turn 180 degrees. And although you can't really see it in the acceleration, you can definitely see it in their angular velocity, how many times this person turned. More than 5 times, but you can definitely see them turning each time. And then the this is the timed up and go test, which is a test that's used clinically for risk assessment of people falling. And it's not very clear, it needs to be a bit more zoomed in. But over here, you can see the 2 turns that they did. So they're sitting, they walk, they turn, they walk some more, they turn, and then they go back to sitting down. So you can see patterns, which I think is important for the next part of my project, which is hopefully developing a machine learning algorithm so that it can automatically detect these things. And the next part of my project is to create an e-textile rather than just having this commercial product, which wouldn't easily be turned into an e-textile. And the focus, one of the main focuses at the Advanced Textiles Research Group is e-yarns. And e-yarns contain small chips within them. So here you can see LEDs in the e-yarn, and anything really can be integrated into e-yarn form, provided it's small. The larger it is, the thicker the yarn will be, and the harder it would be to hide into fabric. But the e-yarns can be used, they can be knitted and woven into fabrics that can then be worn. And these textiles that are made can be washed and dried as normal fabrics can. And the intention for my project is to create a device that can monitor for falls and near falls using an e-yarn. And the fabrication process for e-yarns is a 3-step fabrication process. So the first is to solder using an infrared reflow soldering technique, where we solder copper wires to the solder pads that we need on the chip. So this is an accelerometer that I have soldered, and this creates a robust mechanical and electrical connection between the wires of the component. And then after that, the next step is to encapsulate the component, because the biggest weak point is here where it is soldered to this solder pad. And so they're encapsulated in UV curable resin along with supporting yarns so that it can easily go through the next step of the process. And this just makes sure that everything is safe and also waterproof so that it can go through the washing machine. And then after that, it goes through a braiding machine. We have 2 different ones at the ATRG. This one creates quite a tight knit, and this one is quite loose, just because of the size of the chip that I have, which is, for context, 3 millimeters. But the yarn that's created is thin, it's soft, and it's flexible, and it can be used as a normal yarn in weaving and knitting. And the e-yarn I just showed you is one that I've created. It's an accelerometer, which can also be used for fall detection. And I used it in vibration sensing gloves to alert wearers when they experience vibrations in their hands, for people that use power tools, because that can lead to quite significant problems in their hands. And lastly, the future work that I have to do, which is quite a lot because lots of experimental work to do in a PhD, is I have quite a lot of analysis to do on all the data that I collected, and I need to know the difference between optimal location for activities of daily living, as well as near falls and falls, and what will give me the best data, what placement will be the best for near falls. And as well as that, so I need to do more experiments with human participants on having them do different activities such as stumbling, tripping, and I need them to mimic near falls and such. And the e-yarns that I produce will then be tested and compared to the data that I've already collected. And on top of that, there's one other aspect to the project, which is human-centered design. So I plan to speak to people aged over 65 and ask them, so not only do we want to have an accurate location for near falls, we also want to make something that people will actually wear. And so, we have a study plan to be able to talk to people and ask them about where they would like and where they would wear what they would wear, whether they would like it to be tight or loose, hidden, not hidden, all of those things to help us create a final prototype. And yeah, I think I've done that within lunchtime. So thank you for listening.
Well done, dear Zahra. So questions, please. I see no hands raised. So Zahra, it is a very dangerous thing to present these papers to guys who, like me, have published work in this area. So I have a bunch of questions, but I would not like to monopolize the audience. So I call again for other questions. Okay, perfect. So Zahra, I will also make these questions in the perspective that you mentioned that you are actually a PhD student on your way to research.
Yeah.
So first of all, congratulations. You are on the best time of your life, in case you have not noticed yet. Yeah. So after this stage, everything will go from bad to worse, or maybe not. I'm just kidding you. Like I'm just kidding. Okay. So I was very interested when you started making your presentation. You said we want them to age. We want them to age well and with quality, right?
Yeah.
You said that, yeah, right.
I did, yeah.
So there's a huge problem with this affirmation, with this sentence. You said you don't want them to age with quality. We want all of us to age with quality because you're also aging.
Yeah.
And many of the problems you are discussing, namely, for example, falls and working with power tools, they are not limited to older people or to older adults. They are actually problems that many young people also experience. So it's probably best if next time, this is just a suggestion, so you're free to take it or not. You kind of think of it as, well, this is also very important for me, even though I'm also, I don't know, 23, 24 years old. I don't want to ask. So now a question for real. Have you studied any previous fall protocols? Because it seems that you have designed your experience in a very methodic way. So I would like to see how much this experience compares with other papers published in the area of fall detection.
Yes. So what I did quite a lot of literature review to come up with the project, and a lot of the fall detection. Obviously, a lot of work is being done in fall detection, and ideally, I want to work in near fall detection because I'd rather prevent falls than have people just fall and me detect it. But yes, a lot of the activities that I had people do are from the literature. So it's things that mimic everyday activities. So walking, sitting, standing. The timed up and go comes from what clinicians use for fall risk within older people. The only problem with that is that having read around it a little and also spoken to, I have an aunt that's a nurse and she's a bit older, and having spoken to her, they before they do the risk assessment, part of it is asking whether you've already had a fall, and then they will ask you to do the timed up and go if you have already fallen before. Whereas I want to prevent people falling in the first place, because I have spoken to lots of people that are my age with grandparents that have fallen and it's sort of deteriorated their life, which is sort of why I'm focusing on older people, because if they fall and they're less likely to recover as well as a young person would.
Right. So let me contribute a bit with what we have discovered about fall prevention, and this is related to the timed up and go exercise that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So it's really critical to prevent falls, but the way to do that is not to identify falls. So you cannot prevent a fall by identifying it. You actually can prevent a fall by analyzing the changes on walking patterns, because you fall because your walk pattern becomes more frail, and then that causes you to stumble and fall. So you need to go, I think, of course, you need to know what a fall is, but to actually prevent falls, you don't need to detect falls.
Yeah.
You need to detect the frailty in the walking patterns.
Yeah.
And this takes me to another question. I think I have zero time. I'm sorry. So I think we can continue this offline if you wish. I'm going to give the floor once again to all the colleagues here in the room too. So no questions. Dear Zahra, thank you so much for this very interesting and enticing paper. Please email me and I'll be happy to share with you what we have found regarding detection of motion patterns and also our research on the stand up and go test and stuff like that. So
yeah, that would be wonderful.
Thank you. So guys, we'll have like 1 hour lunch break now. I advise you to keep hydrated and please do not fall. And we'll be back here. Birgitta, at 2 o'clock, is it going to be you or me? It's going to be me, yes?
It's going to be you, yes.
Okay, perfect. It's always the one who asks. Okay, thank you so much, guys. See you here at 2 o'clock sharp. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I hope that you are all ready and had a good meal. So we are also ready to start the afternoon session of this room 2. And we are happy to welcome Andrzej Klimczuk. Is this the right name, Andrzej?
Yeah, but don't worry about the pronunciation. It's a hardcore name for everyone.
Yeah. So okay, so I would like to thank you for coming, of course, and invite you to take the floor, starting by a brief presentation of yourself, and then proceed to present us your paper. I think you have the privileges to share your screen. So the floor is yours, Andrzej.
Sure. I only will tell you before I start that definitely I will not talk a little bit too much for the
Is it only for me, or Andreas is now not communicating?
No, I can't hear him either, and I can't see him either.
Yeah, I think he's just dropped. Hello, Signe. Nice to meet you. So I think we probably pass to Boris Asanovic. Boris, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Are you ready to step in?
No,
okay,
Andrzej is back.
And Andrzej is back. Okay, sorry, Boris.
Okay.
Yeah. Andrzej, you are mute, Andrzej. Cannot hear you.
Hi. Yeah, I have no idea how I lost the internet connection. It was working fine when we have been waiting for the session. Okay, so I will share the screen. And as I said before, I will definitely not present for 30 minutes because this is too much. And I hope that you see the screen correctly. Yes? Yes. Nuno, I don't hear you. You have the mic off.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's working. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was just saying, just before you start your presentation, and don't worry if you don't lose all your time, that's perfectly fine. In fact, we appreciate that. Just give us a few words about yourself, please.
Yeah, sure. My name is Andrzej Klimczuk. I'm representing Warsaw School of Economics, and my background basically is sociology and public policy and economics, of course. And this paper, of course, you have the full version in a conference proceedings that have been sent yesterday in the evening, I suppose. This paper is based on the chapter from the AAI conference, and it was co-authored by me, by Willeke van Stunden and Carina Dantas and Joost van Hof. So it's a 4-person paper, but 1-person presentation, in fact. So basically, we focus in this paper on a conceptual study related to net4age, age-friendly cost action. And it's focused on building inclusive environments for all ages with citizens. So basically, first I will tell you a little bit about the concept and the defining the smart, healthy, inclusive environments. I know this is a long name a little bit for this, and later on I will show you some initiatives that we have been studying that's like case studies divided into 5 types, and later on a little bit summarization conclusions on a comparison of these selected case studies and some let's say recommendations maybe. So basically the paper is focusing on introducing the concept of smart, healthy, inclusive environments in a public discourse, and it's like a different version of discourse about the age-friendly environments. So basically this concept of the age-friendly environments is in scientific discourse from 2007 at least, when the guideline of World Health Organization was published. Later on it was a little bit modified in 2017, and European World Health Organization started using the notion age-friendly environments. Before that, it was used mostly cities and communities. First, it was basically only focused on cities. In this version that we called Smart, Healthy, Inclusive Environments, or SHAFE, the Smart, Healthy, Age-Friendly Environments, we focus much more on not like the dimensions described by the World Health Organizations, but also how to connect those dimensions with the technologies such as big data, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence. So basically, on the left, you see this, let's say, flower of the dimensions of the age-friendly environments from World Health Organization, and on the right, you have this like a graphical interpretation of the SHAFE. So basically, we have this definition that says that those types of environments are focused on improvement and support of independent living through the life course, regardless of age, gender, health status, disabilities, cultural differences, and personal choices. And another thing is that the SHAFE is directly linked to implementation of 2 sustainable development goals. The goal number 3, which is focused on health for all ages. So it's intergenerational dimension, and the goal 11, which focus on development of environments that will be inclusive, safe, resilient, sustainable, mostly focused on cities. And in our interpretation, we also go back to the really old, let's say, given the fact how much things are changing quickly at the moment, for the really old concepts that the United Nations have been promoting from 90s, 20th century, the Society for All Ages concept, that basically everything that we are inventing regarding the aging should be also focused on intergenerational relations and justice or solidarity, if you like. So we have been studying 5 types of forms of implementation of these inclusive environments at different levels. So it was like a study of cases or examples how this concept is implemented already by various actors in different fields. So I'm starting from the, let's say, international European level and going down to the local level. So at the European level, we found especially the notions and concepts used by the European Commission are related to intergenerational programming, and mostly it goes back to year 2012, to the European year of active and healthy active aging and intergenerational solidarity. And the funny thing is that the first sentence, the healthy and active aging, was actually much more disseminated than the focus on intergenerational solidarity, which is not so well continued any longer. And of course, one of the let's say outcomes of this European year of 2012 was the AIP-AHA, the European Innovative Partnership on Active and Healthy Aging. And as you may already know, it was closed down last year. So from this year, we have a new network, which is called Active and Healthy Living in Digital World. And if you want to join this like a stakeholder network, you have to go to the European Commission Futurium platform and register there. And there are a few working groups. One of it is directly focused on the age-friendly environments, and there are other groups like the ecosystems, the silver economy, etc. Another example of combination with this inclusive environments that we found is the new European Bauhaus initiative that started last year by the European Commission, and it basically focused on building and renovation of housing and other types of building, basically to make it much more sustainable and intergenerational friendly. So of course, it's also a part of the new European Green Deal. So so of course, these actions are mostly focused on like a top-down initiatives, and they are mostly encouraging us as a small actors or the SMEs or the NGOs or the universities to do something and simply share the good practices, and that's it. And of course, because the AIP-AHA was closed, before it was closed, actually, we started developing the SHAFE network. And in this like a version that we have right now, the SHAFE was first thematic network of the focused on health issues from 2016-17, as far as I remember. And later on, we started developing the Net for Age proposal to the cost association. And after a second approach, we started implementing this as a cost action. So it was funded. We started the network last year. We still have 3 years to come. And the Net Age for Friendly, the SHAFE network, is divided into 5 working groups and is not a top-down approach as the European Commission. It's much more bottom-up, because we are doing this as a scientists and social, let's say, entrepreneurs to build the network of people interested in smart, healthy, age-friendly environments and share the good practices. And as you can see, the work groups are focused on different things. In my opinion, the most important is the work group 5, which is the reference framework, because we have to create guidelines, standards, and practices how we can continue development of SHAFE, these environments after the project funding, basically, which will end up in 2025, I suppose, or 24. So basically, we have to create some recommendations for funding, for programming, and of course, we can only have hope that the European Commission and any other international actors will use those recommendations. So other things, other initiatives are the empowering facilitators of smart, healthy, inclusive environments. So there are plenty of projects already ongoing. So it's even hard to comment on that because they are still implemented, such as the hands-on SHAFE. That's the project between Poland, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France, and Ireland, and Portugal, which was focused on training basically the facilitators who can share and train people how to implement the good practices related to inclusive environments in our terrain, in cities, in communities. But there are also few projects that are just have been funded actually that are focused on that, and this is like the Bridge Gap project and BIG. So I will not go into details about those projects because you have to find that in the paper. Another example that we studied was the empowering citizens to deal with healthy emergencies, and in this case we focus on. This is also one of the projects that is ongoing, and it started this year. We are focused on creating the innovative training toolkit, including the game and training materials for the people who will share the information how to manage with the intergenerational, let's say, approach, how to manage with the health emergencies such as the COVID-19 pandemic. And one of the most important things in this project is to focus on misinformation and disinformation about the health emergencies. So how we can reach to, for example, older people, how to divide the correct news and not correct fake news about such events. And of course, we have no idea what will be the final result because it's still in the process of making. Another example is the case study of supporting older people's voice, the senior-friendly The Hajj. So this is mostly the project implemented by the Willeke van Stunden in Hague, in Netherlands, and it's already ongoing from 2020 to, and it will end up next year. So it's implementation of these age-friendly environments at the city level, and it have 3 different dimensions. The one is the older people council. So basically the citizens of the city are like the stakeholder group and the advisors to the official government of the city. The second approach, the second division is the knowledge platform, which is the collection of the information about the aging and intergenerational issues in the city. The third one is the older people's panel, which is the survey, which was conducted a few times. And it is focused on collection the information about the views and perceptions of the older people about the environment. So it's basically like a testing of what is being done or what should be done better. So basically, I will finalize with the comparison of these selected initiatives from 5 levels. So we noticed that there are some strange weaknesses and challenges on every level of every of these initiatives. So going up from the top-down level, let's say the European Commission's initiatives, the strange is that, of course, they are trying to combine both actors doing something on the ground, let's say in the cities, and on a second hand, combine this with the European policy, which, let's say, with the state of the art. So it's mostly in this approach is mostly either combined with the digitalization or the diversification of environments. So basically, the focus on for example, during the last 2 years, the focus on the artificial intelligence and big data is rising, basically, in combining to aging. And the weakness of this approach is that it's unclear how the monitoring and evaluation of results is done, because we've seen that in AIP-AHA that basically we still have no idea are the change of the network and the change of the name of the network was related somehow to the evaluation or not, for example, or where you can find the evaluation report even. And mostly those networks of the European Commission actually are basically combined with the funding programs such as the Ambient Assisted Living and Horizon Europe. So basically it looks like the platform to gather the actors for writing the proposals to be funded. And the challenge of this approach is basically the scaling up of the best practices and policy transfer between the countries, regions, and communities. So, you know, European Commission can fund thousands of initiatives and projects, but basically out of it, not every result is, of course, implemented later. So it's easier to understand that when you look at the ambient assisted living program, for example, that you have thousands of products and services, but only some small percentage of it is meets with the uptake on a real market later. The second case, the cost action net age friendly. Of course, in this respect, I cannot be objective anyway because I'm the part of this network. But let's say at the moment, we know that the strength of the network is that we are focusing on a bottom-up approach to gather mostly the researchers and the industries from really a lot of countries, because it's at the moment is more than 30 as far as I know. And it's a few hundreds of people who are involved in the network. And the weakness is that we have no idea will we establish the sustainability of the network. As I said before it was the cost action, it was the thematic network co-funded by the European Commission. So it's the continuation of the previous project, but we have no idea what will happen after the funding, the cost action funding will end. And the challenge that we have is to create the multi-level ecosystems with a quadruple helix of citizens, public authorities, companies, and researchers. So basically, one of the objectives of the cost action is to implement those inclusive environments in every country and region that is involved in the network. And of course, we don't have the special funding for that because the cost is mostly funding networking. So we can only, let's say, encourage network members and stakeholders to do something about that and share the good practices, etc. Right? In a tiered level, the projects such as Hands-on Schafe that have been focusing on facilitating, let's say, they are mostly good in providing the training packages and, let's say, promotion of the entrepreneurship at the local level, but on a second hand, they don't have a big scale, so it's not easy even copy paste that in different places. So the challenge is the further dissemination of these programs. The case of the Step Up project is on the one hand good because we focus on empowering the citizens, mostly the older people, how to deal with the health emergencies, and for example, how to divide the misinformation and disinformation. But on the second hand, we don't have the tools to monitor the results after the COVID-19 pandemic, and nobody knows how long the pandemic will take up. How long in the meaning of time. The last initiative, the senior-friendly The Hague, on the one hand, the good is that it's an approach to really involve into, let's say, co-production, creation of the smart, the age-friendly city on a local level and involve the older people into governance of this model. But on the second hand, we also don't have the sustainability of any of these platforms that are created in the project after 2022. And the challenge is actually to involve all types of the older people, as it's often happens actually in these like a city level projects actually. The point is that the network, the project is much more interesting for the people from the rich environments, let's say wealthy people, but on the second hand, it's really hard to get to the people living in a poverty. So actually, it's a little bit negative that the opinions are mostly shared by the people with the better socioeconomic status and better position, but not always think about, for example, the neighbors who are not so wealthy, let's say. So basically, it's a huge challenge, I think, that in all types of implementation of the age-friendly cities, communities, projects. So basically, that's was all from my side. So if you are interested in a cost action, you should go to the Net for Age-friendly website and take a look on the deliverables that are available there right now and the news, and search for the information about the upcoming webinars, because there will be few soon. And that's it. Thank you for the.
Thank you so much, Andrzej. You said you were not going to use your 25 minutes, but in fact you did.
Oh my God, so, I'm surprised. Yeah, okay. I was not controlling the time. Because usually I am focusing on 10 minutes max, serious.
It's okay, it's okay. So do we have any questions from the audience? Okay, I have one question for you, Andrzej. It's kind of a sum up of your presentation. It's like this. We feel that there are many initiatives regarding aging and inclusion of older adults in society, including from the European Union and so on and so forth. But do you feel that these initiatives, they are successful? Do you feel that they have the outcome that is expected from them?
It's a tricky question, you know, because a few years ago, like 3 years ago, I have done some study, but I haven't published it. I have to update it with measurement where the social innovations such as the age-friendly cities and any like age-friendly related projects, where they are coming from and where are they implemented, and are they, let's say, transferring outside of the region or the country? So it's much more geographical study, let's say. That's why it's so hard actually to present it and to measure it. And the outcome of it was actually very negative. That even if you have a best practice in some country, it doesn't guarantee that you will be able to scale up it or transfer it or copy paste basically the idea from one place to another. So basically, it's a question, you know, to the programming of funding from the Commission, for example, side. So, you know, I don't want to be very negative because, of course, we have these beautiful programs and initiatives, etc. But the point is that unless there are, you know, any special mechanism at least European level that will be supporting the sustainability of such initiatives, I don't think that we will move forward, because for years we are making, you know, the wheel again and again, and there are thousands of projects funded in a different programs each year. Like, for example, the Interreg, which is also focused on aging, the ambient assisted living, etc. There are thousands of those things. But the point is that why we are not selecting the best and somehow continuing the best of those practices, right? So from the perspective of the Commission, let's say, as far as I observe that for years, it's usually understood that those who are the best, they will somehow manage on the market to sustain the initiatives, but somehow it doesn't work. So unless you have, I don't know, like a franchising model of, let's say, age-friendly housing or something like that, I don't think that it will work. So, you know, it's a question for the huge conference, I suppose, actually, about the scaling up. Yeah.
You were discussing that, so I felt it would be a nice question. So if you feel like picking up that paper again and you want some volunteers to help you work on it, please reach out. Okay. And thanking Andrzej, I would like to give the floor now to Boris Asanovic.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would also like to invite you, Boris, to make a quick presentation of yourself, and please take the floor to present us your research work.
Thank you much. So, do you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, not yet, I guess. Yeah. Now it's coming.
Now it's working.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I would like to say thank you for all organizers of the conference, especially Francisco and also Nuno being the moderator of this section. And I would like to say that I am working in cost projects already during several years, and we participated together in the previous project that was connected with AA-PLI, with platforms for assisted living, and there are several other projects connected with signal processing, image processing, and also I would like to say that I'm working information system and technologies department in State University of Grodno. It is Belarusian university on the border with Poland. Possibly that's why I'm continuing after the previous speaker, Andrzej, because we are just very close to border and around 15 kilometers.
Yeah, I will interrupt you. Actually, you are my neighbor because I live 50 kilometers from the Polish-Belarusian border in Białystok. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that nothing has happened on the border, in spite that there are very impressive news that something is happening. But I think that the research is still going on, and we are just involved in these problems and try to solve these problems and to do our best. And the talk will be connected with biometric crypto system based on SMILE video data from trained autoencoder and concatenated read, Solomon, and linear codes. This is the junction between several areas, including signal processing, image processing, data processing, and also applied error correcting coding. And I think that the topic partly connected with our general line within project Sheldon, and also it's very necessary to be sure that you have an opportunity to generate strong key from a very weak biometric signal. And that is why this system that was proposed during last year includes some new ideas how to apply machine learning to error correcting coding and to make complete the biometrical system. And the outline of the talk include the definition of SMILE and concept of SMILE ID, and the main goal and previous works. We shall speak about the autoencoder structure, and we shall say about features and their separation. We shall show the biometric parameters, biometric identification and verification. We shall speak about the encryption and fuzzy commitment scheme, that is a base scheme that is used in our system. We shall go to applied coding, and we shall speak about the read Solomon code and biometric noise. We shall show the temporal SMILE characteristics and the structure of biometric system. We shall calculate the read Solomon parameters that will be used for the design of this system, and we shall continue with experiments performed with staked autoencoder, and we shall show several examples of the feature space deformation and the symbol covered with noise for the read Solomon code, and we shall connect our results with the evaluation of FAR and key size for concatenated error correcting codes. And it's necessary to say several words about the SMILE that is formed by flexing the muscles at the sides of the mouth. Some SMILEs include a contraction of the muscles at the corner of the eyes. And a smile, as one of the basic emotional states, shows that you are friendly, relaxed, open, and happy. A human smile that is a key factor in determining person's psychological state can implement the concept of SMILE ID. And it is not very new idea, because several applications and several user cases already known in practice. We know the Face ID, that is a facial recognition system developed by Apple for iPhone and iPad. The systems allow biometric authentication by the use of infrared picture. We also know video ID, video record on a mobile phone or PC camera that is created for web money with demonstrating passport main page. And SMILE ID is a digital authentication service that uses biometric facial recognition for access control in several African countries. We can check these addresses to find some more information. And what is our goal, and what are the previous works connected with our topic? The main goal is to construct a new biometric crypto system based on SMILE imprint from video frames with the use of autoencoder and fuzzy commitment scheme. Several publications has been done in this direction. Murat Taskiran applied dynamic features extracted from videos. The statistical properties of facial distances were studied by Turkish researcher Dibeklu, who developed the Uvanema SMILE database. And in our lab, we constructed a system one based on Hock structures, that is the histogram of oriented gradients and BCH codes realized with face analyze application. This system, as a matter of fact, was presented on one of the meetings in the project, post project IC 1303 with Nuno Garcia. Thank you, him. Recently, the face deep features and creation of smile face imprint has been done. There are several publications below. And few words about autoencoder. Autoencoder, as the name presents, performs nonlinear transformation of feature space and consists of two parts. The first one is encoder and the second one is decoder. Encoder translates the input signal to noise, to code, and the decoder restores the signal from code, from this latent space. And the goal of autoencoder is to learn a representation of data set and dimensional reduction. We applied staked autoencoder with two hidden layers and fine-tuned with supervised method. The features that were used by us is defined by transfer function of the decoder, where superscript I+1 represent the I+1 layer, and vector x prime has some factor from the real numbers, and it is a weight matrix. And here is some expressions that could help us to define the separation of classified classes depends on the decidability index. Here is the statistical expression that shows the parameters of genuine and imposter users and concrete mean and various distributions that could be shown later in this presentation. And biometrics, known for many people, now is used in different applications, and we see different modalities here. But interesting that face that gave an opportunity to detect biometrical signal from the distance 1 to 3 meters is very attractive, maybe ideal in many cases. What are the main parameters? The main parameters that already known for people include files accept rate, files reject rate, equal error rate, and also the ROC receiver operating characteristic that could be could define the different schemes and algorithms. A few words about identification and verification. In our case, we applied the verification or authentication. In first case, in identification, we map many to one, and we try to find the person according to his biometrical trait. And in the second one, we map 1 to 1, and is verification. We want to construct the encryption system that is based on the generation of random keys, and this system will use the pin or key mapping to biometric, and we apply some sensors to get image, for example, the image of eye or image of hand or image of face, and to construct biometric template that is bind to this random generated key. And the main scheme that was exploited by us has name fuzzy commitment scheme. It is known scheme. It was proposed by Julius and Wittenberg 10 or more than 10 years ago. And in this scheme, we want to generate the biometric template from some imprint. In our case, we apply the face of a person to make the biometric template. And it is a digital reference to some person according to the extracted biometric sample B. However, in other trait, we see that biometric signal could be with noise, and this noise is presented by this formula, and we want to apply the helper data that help us to extract biometrical features from the asterisk signal. Also, the main mechanism that is exploited by us is the ECC code or the error correcting code, a very powerful code, read Solomon code that we show. now. It is defined over Galois field as and has a redundancy of n minus k symbols. It's those bits. The symbols is consistent from bits, and the length n is defined for the different biometrical systems according to the biometrical noise, according to the length of a key. Fortunately, we could evaluate the biometric noise by the use of several bounds that evaluate noise like the symbol error rate. The first rate or false rejection rate depends on this parameter and could be presented by this quotient. And the second one, that is the false acceptance rate, could be presented by this formula. I don't want to say much about this math because of the time. And what we have done, we analyzed several biometric signals from the database that was proposed by the Turkish researcher, and we got 3 areas of the smile signal. That includes the onset, the first area, the apex, the second one, and the offset, that is the set area of a smile signal. The average smile duration have values from 0.5 to 4.0 seconds. However, it's necessary to apply some detection to get several frames from this signal. And we shall see that according to the number of frames that we can get, we can design the length of a key. We introduced this smile imprint as a supervector from several vectors of smile signal frames. And in encoder block, after preprocessing, we made the quantization, we made the encoding over a key, a random key, for example, and then we calculated the hash value. And in the enrollment or in the verification phase, we can make the same procedures. We can extract, or we can subtract the key from the biometrical signal. We can decode the code word, and we can compare hashes. We calculated the parameters, and we have seen that increasing the length of the Reed-Solomon code, we improve the performance according to the parameter false rejection rate of Reed-Solomon 63.15 and Reed-Solomon 31.15 symbols. The experiments were performed with the use of staked autoencoder, and we exploited the MATLAB environment for these parameters because of the library functions, because of the simplicity, etc. We got the normalized grayscale images of length 112 to 112 pixels in size that were scaled to 50%, and we checked the different combinations of the staked autoencoder layers, and we made training of staked autoencoder that includes unsupervised training and also supervised training with several additional video frames. The results of our experiments of the staked autoencoder usage is shown here, and we see that the values of mean square error are going to expand significantly relative to each other after training and after supervised fine-tuning of the system. Here is the interclass distribution, and here is the shifting of the intraclass distributions of the features. This is the example of nonlinear deformation of feature space. We know that the autoencoder has an opportunity to unsupervised spreading the features of different subjects or different faces. And 40 subjects. With the help of TSNE instrument, we produced the visualization of this feature space. Then we applied the Reed-Solomon code with a length of 63 and then 31 symbol, and we checked the scattering of the characters or for the code block that used for the key generation. And we see that most of parameters have very low values and they are very close to Gaussian distribution. The evaluation of false rejection rate and key size for concatenated error correcting code is shown in this table. First of all, I would like to say that the coding was performed on 2 stages. The first one, apply the symbol coding of Reed-Solomon code. Here so we see the Reed-Solomon code block, and every symbol in Reed-Solomon code is encoded additionally with linear code. Here is the binary values of this code. And we applied several lengths of the linear code from 6 bits to 3 bits. And we see that for the long code words of Reed-Solomon code, the performance is rather good, but the best one was obtained for the short blocks of Reed-Solomon with powerful repetition codes, shown here in the table. However, checking the key and the length of the key in bits, we see that increasing the redundancy and improving the performance, we have to exploit more video frames for data processing. We applied the hard decision decoding for both error correcting code. However, in the future, we plan to apply some software decoding. And the main conclusion that could be headlining here that we have constructed a new biometric system based on smile imprint from face video with the use of strict autoencoder and fuzzy commitment scheme, and the test using 2-layer SIA for 5 different groups of 40 users, randomly selected from UVA-NEMO database from 400 subjects, has been done. Real data of output layer was quantized and encoded by concatenated, linear, and Reed-Solomon codes of different lengths, mainly 63 and 31 symbol in length, with redundancy around 70%. Simulations showed that false rejection rate of no more than 0.5 and 1% for crypto keys of size 120, 135 bits for biometric feature dimensions of 31 and 63 elements has been done. And further work can be done with other neural network structures to get more complex deep features and to improve error correcting coding technique based on some soft decision decoding. Thank you for your attention. And
thank you, dear Boris.
We have some time for questions.
We do have some time for questions, yes, yes. So please let me have some of your questions. I think maybe this is a topic that is not as widely
connected.
Yeah, connected, exactly. That was what I was looking for. But I would like to ask you something. So recognizing smile as a biometry is of course very interesting and very important, but where could we use this in one of the scenarios that, for example, was discussed previously in the morning, or in any scenario? How would you see this being used in a real life scenario? And by the way, let me tell you that I missed the good times we had over at the APL cost action, and also that I have very good friends, not in Grodno, of course, you in Grodno, but also in in Bialystok. I was there once for a wedding, and it was absolutely marvelous. Okay, so this is also part of the conference. Yeah, we have to establish bonds with our fellow attendees. So, dear Boris, how would you use this solution in a real life scenario without addressing any of the security and safety concerns that, of course, this kind of platform brings?
Thank you for question. And I would like to start from the possibly applications. Maybe it already have been done in your new book. I have noticed that you have published in this year book, and it's connected with biosignal processing or biodata processing. And I would like to read it. It's necessary to have time to find it. And the application that we can consider here, like the user cases, could be imagined that for different groups of people that live together. For example, we have a lot of special houses for elderly, and there are several rooms and spaces that is controlled by some devices like cameras. And normally that biometrical system could give and open the access to these people. And we can put some devices to prevent going over and losing people, for example. Also, there are some problems connected with COVID now because of the mask wearing. And the last ideas were connected how to overcome this problem, how to detect mask, and how to make the image processing, including the areas where there is no mask, around eyes, for example, ears, etc., just to get some biometrical signal and to bind it to our construction of the error correcting codes. And I think that this is not only for elderly. We know that biometrical passports and biometrical documents already in use in different countries and in different cases. I think that it is quite useful area just not to remember the password, but to generate it from the body, from face, from voice, etc. That's the application that we can imagine. However, we are still thinking about the COVID, and maybe it will be necessary to gather the new data sets, including masked people, just to think about the improvement when we check the faces with masks.
You are absolutely right. We need the new data sets, or hopefully we need that the virus goes away and we all stop wearing masks, which I'm not sure that will happen in a short time. We are in touch, and I'll try to provide you with a copy of the book. So we'll get in touch via email.
Thank you.
You have more? Do we have more questions from the audience? Probably not. I see no hands being raised, and therefore I would like to ask you all to have a very good day, and to thank you for coming to this workshop, and of course thank our two presenters of the afternoon, Andrzej and Boris. Thank you for your papers, and I'm sure that you are available to address any questions that may subside after we close this session. So, having said this, thank you so much for coming again. Have a wonderful, happy life, and see you soon in some other event. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.